you should just throw back at them, who cares? Anytime you hear Mark Carney talking about trade with the US or tariffs on Canadian exports, you should just say, who cares, change the channel, and tune him out.
Are we to take that this is that Mr. Champagne didn't do his job and that there's something you can do that he didn't do? Because he's now the finance minister and he was part of the same government that made the decision based on, what F-35 was offering. So did he do something wrong?
Who cares?
It will take some sacrifices. And it will take some time.
Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. I must confess, Andrew Scheer, I think, is the funniest guy in the House of Commons. He makes these other videos. Gotta show you, there's so much information jammed into these videos, but he makes it funny and entertaining. Keeps it pretty light, but there is a lot of dark truths in this video. Let's take a look. Mark Carney is about to be exposed again. When are the Liberal voters going to catch on? I'm pretty sure Andrew Scheer will keep you engaged for a few minutes here, but we also have Minister of Industry Melanie Joly at the end of this. Just a couple of quick questions, but watch how she fumbles the ball. Poor Melanie Joly's on her way to France. They must have great Kool-Aid over there, or Coke, or good pop, or something. Anyhow, let's get into Andrew Scheer. He's one to watch, very entertaining.
Have you ever shared a problem in your life with someone? Maybe you lost your job, struggling to make bill payments. Maybe it's even trouble in a relationship. And then the response back is, who cares?
No! No! After lunch, can I whip you?
Nope.
Oh, no fair. Ow!
I wonder what makes it turn.
Who cares?
Imagine if the person who said, who cares, is the person in your life who's supposed to care, who you actually hired to care, who gets paid by your tax dollars to care. Well, that's exactly what Mark Carney did to every single Canadian who's suffering under unfair tariffs from the US administration.
It's not an endorsement of everything that happens in the country, nor vice versa from those countries to us.
Next question.
Who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I spoke to him. I'll speak to him again when it matters. Who cares?
Who cares?
To put this in context, remember, the threats on tariffs was such an existential threat to Canada that Mark Carney called an early election.
I've just requested that the Governor General dissolve Parliament and call an election for April 28th.
He made a pitch. It wasn't just a promise to the Canadian people. It was the central promise of his entire campaign, that he was the man with a plan. He's the guy you hire in a crisis. He had some kind of secret knowledge that he would know how to handle Donald Trump and deliver a win.
I think in a situation like this, you need experience in terms of crisis management. You need negotiating skills, but you also need economic expertise.
He spends the entire election campaign demonizing his opponents, claiming that they would sell out on tariffs and they would somehow bow down and worship at the altar of Donald Trump.
And someone who worships Donald Trump will kneel down before him, not stand up to him. Negativity won't win a trade war.
And then he goes down to Washington, and just take a look at this body language. He's literally gushing over meeting his hero, Donald Trump. Mark Carney went from elbows up during the election to this in the Oval Office.
I want to be a great man too.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
And as a result, Canadians are losing their jobs. Thousands of job losses in the auto sector, the softwood lumber sector, the steel industry. All this investment leaving Canada, going to the United States after all of this happening, after Mark Carney became Prime Minister. He was the guy that was supposed to solve all this. These are his words.
If there's not a crisis, you wouldn't be seeing me. I am most useful. I am honest. I'm most useful in crisis. I'm not that good in peacetime.
And after all that, months of this devastation hitting the Canadian economy, Mark Carney says, who cares?
Next question.
Who cares?
You know who cares? Those auto workers, those softwood lumber workers, those steel workers, the thousands of Canadians whose jobs depend on spin-off industries affected by those US tariffs. But there was one group in Canada that didn't care: the media.
The opposition Conservatives are going after the Prime Minister over comments he made at the G20 summit during the weekend. So tell us about how all this played out in question period, because I heard Pierre Poilievre, he repeated that "who cares" response in English. When he was answering in French, he said it in English. He said it many, many times.
Really? The focal point of this story is how the Conservatives reacted, not the actual thing that Mark Carney said to all those Canadians who have lost their jobs. This is a subtle but very effective tactic by the media. It's called Conservatives pounce. You see, when a Conservative makes a mistake or does something wrong, that's the focal point of the story. The media will hold it up to Canadians and say, this was something wrong. When a Liberal does something wrong, the media angle is Conservatives pounce, Conservatives slam. The entire focal point is on the Conservative reaction, not telling Canadians that what the Liberals did was objectively wrong. You might think that doesn't matter, but it is a subtle but effective way that the media protects Liberals from scrutiny and anger by keeping the spotlight slightly off center onto something else, not really the bad thing that the Liberal did, but how the Conservatives are reacting. The viewers and the listeners and the reader's brain is slightly refocused, not on the intrinsically awful thing that a Liberal just did, but how the Conservatives are reacting. Think about it. Mark Carney made this the essential plank of his election campaign, and the media happily went along with it. And then a few months later, he says, "Who cares?" And you might be hearing about this for the first time on this YouTube channel. That's because they did not give it the coverage that it deserved. You would think that this would be the lead story on every broadcast for days at a time, front page headlines across the country. But they didn't. And when they did cover it, they used the classic tactic that the Parliamentary Press Gallery always uses.
Next question.
Who cares?
What Mark Carney's actually saying is he has no idea. He doesn't know how he's going to get a deal. He has no plan to deal with Donald Trump. In fact, he's so bothered by the questions on it that he says, "Who cares?" Well, that's what you should say every time Liberals tell you that you have to vote Liberal to deal with something on the international stage, to deal with the tariffs, to deal with the US administration. You should just throw back at them, "Who cares?" Anytime you hear Mark Carney talking about trade with the US or tariffs on Canadian exports, you should just say, "Who cares?" Change the channel and tune him out, because that was his message to you. So you know what, Mark Carney, this part's especially for you. On behalf of the millions of Canadians you've let down and insulted, every time you open your mouth in Parliament, our message to you: who cares?
Count how many hard swallows there are in this. Anyways, we won't be seeing much more of Melanie Joly. She's heading to France. You know, they must have great Kool-Aid there.
Hi, Minister.
Hi,
thanks
Steve.
for taking the call.
Pleasure.
You talked about speaking to Lockheed Martin, and I presume to see if we can get more industrial benefits from Lockheed Martin for the F-35. What most of us remember is that there was a competition, a pretty lengthy competition in which we considered industrial benefits, we considered the technical merits of the plane, and in fact, it was your predecessor, Mr. Champagne, who signed off on the industrial benefits from the F-35. So the idea that you're going back to Lockheed Martin to seek industrial benefits, are we to take that this is that Mr. Champagne didn't do his job and that there's something you can do that he didn't do? Because he's now the finance minister and he was part of the same government that made the decision based on, you know, what F-35 was offering. So did he do something wrong?
Well, Steve, listen, my job is to be able to defend jobs in Canada in the context of trade tensions. And what is really, really important to understand is that we suspended the contract on with Lockheed on F-35 back in the spring. And so in that sense, we did so because there were different reasons, but including the fact that we thought that we didn't get enough industrial benefits. And so I'll continue to make sure that we defend our point. And at the same time, I'll continue to engage with the company.
Second question is about the measures you discussed at the outset of the call, the measures to limit steel imports from other countries. Right now, we have 25% tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminum, and we're trying to reset relations with China to build relations, to build new export markets, to do exactly the sort of thing that you're doing with as you travel through Asia. Doesn't this work at cross purposes with our efforts to repair relations with China? Now we have to inform them that we're going to be limiting their steel imports in addition to the 25% tariffs we slapped on them last year.
Well, listen, the Prime Minister will have more to say regarding the different measures we'll be announcing today. But when it comes also to our engagement with countries, I think that many countries around the world understand that the steel sector is a very specific sector, which is highly impacted across the world, including in Europe, including in Canada, with 50% tariffs. And so Europeans are in the midst of protecting their own market to make sure that they protect their own jobs in Germany and Spain, etc. And we're doing the same. Meanwhile, we want to be able to work with countries with which we have free trade agreements, including, of course, Europe and including with certain Asian countries. And so for the rest, when it comes to our trade relationships with China and others, our approach has always been no surprises. So our goal is to be able to engage with these countries while we're just defending our national interest.
We're going to wrap it up there, gang. Thank you all for watching. Aaron, Canadian Looney, like, share, subscribe, get notified. Come and join us for one of our live shows. We cover all the question periods, do a great pre-show, all the fun stuff. Anyhow, thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. We're going out on how bad a politician Mark Carney is. He's not a politician. He's a banker, a con man, a snake oil salesman, a fraud, and he's duping a lot of Canadians still. Catch you in the next video.
As a European, I am a European, actually.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm an Irish citizen. Yeah, so there you
welcome.
go.
Welcome.
Speaking as a European.
WTF.
Here, here.
How many kids did you molest with Jeffrey Epstein?
More than just elbows. And as the most European of the non-European countries,
being aware of what potential conflicts of interest you sought to avoid.
What possible conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance.
These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations, you're spending more money on taxes than on food, clothing, and shelter combined.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
who cares?